For several years, I have said that, and I know this is crazy sounding, but stand in line with the crazy things that come out of my mouth, alcoholics might just save the country in the end. Now, what the heck does that mean? Well, first of all, you don't have to be an alcoholic to save the country. But alcoholics, ones that are not dry drunks, but people who are actually who've done their homework and know what is going on in their own life, they're not afraid of anything. And they know what the truth is and where it comes from, where their source of power is. So tonight I'm going to do something. I'm going to introduce you to a new employee. And I'm going to introduce you to her in a way that no other broadcast network would even think. They would all, if I would have mentioned doing this at any other network, they all would have said to me, "What the hell are you thinking?" The truth. I want you to see why I've hired this new employee. I want you to see and let it settle in you if she is somebody that you can trust. In the next 45 minutes, I think you're going to be inspired. You may find a little more courage in your own life, some answers in your own life, and you also might find some answers and some courage in your life as a citizen. Let me make the introduction next. The right side of Well, tonight, I want to introduce you to somebody who you've already seen on TV a million times, but you may not have ever spent any time with her and actually hearing her, because she's going to be in one of those roles that she's been in for a long time where she doesn't give her opinion. But I think it's important for you to know her. Whether you agree with her politically or not doesn't really matter. I don't even know what her political views are. I just know who she is. And she is the new news anchor for The Blaze, who also has been hosting For the Record, which will soon be a weekly show on this network, and we're thrilled to have her. Lori Dew, welcome.
Thank you, Glenn. It's great to be here.
So, most people would not lead on a new job or anything else with this card. Hi, my name is Lori Dew. And
I'm an alcoholic.
Right. And why would you accept my offer to play that card and lead with that?
Why not? Being an alcoholic and being a woman in long-term recovery from alcoholism is the biggest thing in my life. And while I don't let my past struggles with alcoholism define me,
right,
my 20 years of suffering has certainly shaped who I am today.
Sure. So let's start at the past, and then we'll move forward. So let's start with the dark stuff. I am convinced, and I think you are too, we've had a few minutes to talk off and on here over the last few weeks about this topic. I'm convinced that most people think alcoholism or addiction to drugs or anything is such a shameful thing that they can never bring it out. And I am convinced that if you say it and you get it out, you're no longer afraid. And so it gives you all kinds of power because you're not afraid of anything, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the bottom line.
All right. So let's commit what I believe would have 10 years ago, maybe longer because I did it about 10 years ago, commit career suicide. And tell me, when I was watching you on television with Bill O'Reilly and you were there, were you drunk?
Never drunk on air. And I want to make that very, very clear.
Okay.
And
it's a weird line. I bet you that stopped you because I was never drunk on air either. Yeah. I stopped in '94, and I would bet you that I I thought, well, I'm not an alcoholic because I'm not drunk at work. But I was destroyed at work.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I used to lie in the fetal position on the floor of my office at Fox News Channel an hour before I was going on the air and hosting. That's how much pain I was in. Because even though I had this big job at Fox News and before that MSNBC and CNN, it wasn't enough for me to give up the bottle. Drinking was absolutely my priority in life, despite the fact that I had a lot to lose. It didn't matter, because when you're in the throes of addiction, and at that point it went from something that was fun to something I absolutely needed to do. When you're in addiction, it's very hard. You can't just step away from it. And it doesn't matter, you know, consequences be damned. It didn't really matter that if I did stupid stuff, which I did a lot, even while I had this really high-profile job. To me, that didn't matter.
Who kept your secrets? Did people know?
A lot of people were shocked when they found out that I had quit drinking, that I was in recovery, long-term recovery, that it wasn't something I just quit, for a few months to sort of dry out and get my head together.
Okay, so wait, they were shocked that you were willing to quit or that you were an alcoholic?
I think people just thought of me as good time Laurie. And that's who I thought I was, too. My motto was work hard, play hard. I deserve to drink the way I want to. I'm a TV news anchor. It's what we do.
Right.
Because, you know, this industry is a crazy industry.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're working crazy hours. You know, it was always, let's go to the bar after the show. And I think people were shocked when I revealed just how bad it was.
So when did you start drinking?
In college. I was a good girl in high school.
Yeah.
I had a relatively strict upbringing, which is probably why I went crazy when I went to college. I went to a big state university, UNC Chapel Hill, and I was on the varsity swim team there, which kept
That's
me...
a pretty conservative, at least I think it is, isn't it? Chapel Hill?
No.
Oh,
no, it's very liberal. No, it's a very, very liberal place. Okay. But, you know, I drank the way a lot of other college kids drink, and for me it was normal, binging like that. You know, I thought, oh, it's part of the college experience. I didn't do this in high school. Yeah. I think what prevented it from being worse was the fact that I was on the varsity swim team at UNC, and so I had to get up at 5 in the morning and get in a cold pool and swim laps before class even started. But there were a few mornings where several of us would roll in straight from a party and go to swim practice.
So when you started working at MSNBC and CNN, you were drinking?
Yes.
The whole time?
Well, sure, the whole time, but it wasn't to the degree that it later became. You know, alcoholism, as you know, is a progressive disease. It gets
Everything
worse.
bad in my life is progressive.
Well, I mean, right, and it's not just alcoholism that we're talking about. I mean, we're talking about food, we're talking about hard drugs, shopping, gambling, whatever it is. Addiction is addiction, and
people replace it. A lot of times, people will replace one with another.
They do, and I'll tell you a funny story about food. When I quit drinking, I started eating more. And over the course of 3 or 4 years, I gained about 15 pounds, which I've since taken off.
15? You're a rookie. Shut up.
Yeah, but when you're on TV, it shows. Every pound shows.
This audience is I'm the male Oprah Winfrey. I'm just like...
No, you are not.
I'm like an accordion.
You're no Chris Christie.
Okay.
Speaking of food addiction, right?
So, when you were at Fox, you would go to... you go to parties with Rush and Rupert.
Sure. Yeah, I was. Yes, I was invited to lots of interesting, very fun parties. Being a Fox News anchor, a lot of us were. And even when I was in situations with extremely high-profile people, it didn't matter to me.
President.
The President of the United States, George W. Bush. Right. Correct. Yeah. I was invited, and I think we're showing the picture of the moment where I'm meeting him. I was wasted there, and I'm not proud to admit it, but I think that it is worth admitting because I want people to know just where I was as a human being at that time.
Can you tell, looking at pictures of you, can you tell you're wasted? Because I can. I can look at
You
pictures.
can?
I can. I can look at pictures, and because I don't know about you, but I spent 3 to 5 years, I think 5 years, looking at myself in the mirror every morning and saying, you're pathetic. Because I tried to stop, and every day I promised myself, just not today, just prove you're not an alcoholic. I mean, I don't think I ever said an alcoholic because like you, I was still successful. I didn't blow up my family. I was still producing. Alcoholics are winos. They're in the gutter, and that, they wet themselves or
well, and that's certainly what people think of when they think of alcoholics.
That's not
they're
it.
you, they're me,
right.
They're your dentist, your priest, your pizza delivery guy,
and there's
your
these
colleague.
high functioning people that can be really out of control, and nobody knows.
And that was me. And I will tell you that, again, people thought of me as Good Time Lori, and I was always up for a drink. Hey, she's the girl who drinks a lot. And, I'm not a small person. People can't tell because I'm sitting down, but I'm about 6 feet tall, and I'm not tiny, and I could really put them away. I drank like a man. And that was something that I really prided myself on. It was like a badge of honor. I'm one of the guys. I can drink like one of the guys. And for me, it was something that I laughed about. But I would go home, and there was no laughing at home.
No.
There were a lot of drunk conversations with myself in the mirror saying, when are you going to turn your life around? But at that point, I was so far in and so far gone, and I did not want to imagine myself without alcohol in my life, that I just thought, well, I'll get sober at some point in my life, or maybe I won't. Oh. Yep.
What is that?
That's a sad photo. This is a photo I've never shown before, and this almost makes me want to cry. This is a photo of me at 5 in the morning. I believe I was in someone's apartment in San Francisco. I didn't even know whose apartment I was in. And I don't remember this picture being taken, but this is back when, before digital cameras, I think that this was one of those disposable cameras. Somebody took a picture of me. And so when I developed that disposable camera, this was one of the photos.
You don't remember it.
Isn't that the saddest thing you've ever seen?
Well, it's not the most proud moment, but
no.
Yeah.
But I kept this picture.
Look at your eyes. You just look like you're just uber vulnerable here.
I am.
Yeah.
And
what?
That person's a long way away. I look at that and I don't even know who that person is now.
What was the? I believe in turning points. Nobody ever, I don't care what politician ever says, I don't care what anybody says. For instance, Mitt Romney changed his viewpoint on abortion. I got him on the air, and I said to the audience before he came on, and he couldn't hear me, and I said, if he doesn't know exactly when he changed his mind, he's lying to you. And he came on, and I said, so when did you change your mind? And he told me what room it was. He told me it was at Harvard. This thing happened. Guy brought this in. It was 10 years prior, whatever it was. And he knew. He knew. You don't change something big unless there is that one moment. So tell me that one moment when we come back. Back in a minute.
The network you are building. The network you are building.
I had looked at myself in the mirror every day and promised myself that I wouldn't drink that day. Just to prove it. Just don't do it today. Never made it. Every day. And it would get so bad that I couldn't, when I go into the bathroom, I would open up the vanity so I wouldn't have to look at myself anymore. I couldn't look myself in the eye anymore. And started having blackouts, and those are terrifying when they start.
Yeah.
And but it was my kids that was my pivot point. I had put my kids down to bed. And I would tell them stories at night about Inky, Blinky, and Stinky, 3 little mice that would get on their marshmallow boat and go to the island of cheese. And my kids came down in the morning. They were having breakfast, and they said, "Dad, tell us the story of Inky, Blinky, and Stinky." And not only could I not remember the story, I didn't even remember putting them to bed. That was my bottom. That day, I was at an AA meeting. What was your pivot point?
It wasn't one thing that happened. It was a series of things that happened. I never had a DUI. I never beat anybody up.
Right.
I never was beaten up, meaning I was not the victim of a crime, nor had I ever perpetrated a crime while I was intoxicated. So it's not like, oh, I was thrown in jail and then I got sober the next day. It was a confluence of events. Number one, my blackouts were becoming more frequent.
Okay, stop for a second. In the movies, and everybody makes this glamorous, and kids, and if you don't drink to blackout stage, people just think that it's like, oh, I did crazy things last night. What? No, no, no. You have to build up such a tolerance that if you're drinking to the blackout stage, your brain is shutting down everything except your vital organs. And so when that happens, it's terrifying. When you really black out, it's terrifying.
It is. And sometimes my memories would be fuzzy. They were sort of gray outs.
Sure.
Maybe they weren't total blackouts.
Right.
But there were moments where I remembered some of the evening, and then past a certain point, it was gone.
Yeah.
So my blackouts were becoming more frequent. I got into a drunken fight with my father, where I was extremely drunk, and we got into a fight, which was horrible because I love my father dearly. Number three, I made a blackout phone call to the man I was dating at the time and didn't remember it. Most importantly, number four was my sister's pregnancy. My sister was pregnant with her first child, and I sort of woke up one day and thought, I want this unborn baby to have a present aunt, to have a sober aunt. The aunt who makes her flight home to Atlanta to show up at the baptism and the plays and the athletic events. I don't want to be the aunt who misses the flight because she's so drunk she couldn't get on the plane, and these are my darling nephews. So that unborn baby is now 6 years old, and his name is Robert. That's him right there. He has a brother named Thomas, who's 3. And those little boys are my pride and joy. And they are 2 major reasons why I stay sober. You know, I don't want to let them down. Of course, I don't want to let myself down.
Right.
And I don't want to let my family down. And I don't want to let the people in my life down. But those boys, I look at those faces and I think, I'm a much better aunt than I would have been before.
Did you, when you sobered up, did you worry at all that you couldn't do your job because you were better? Did you?
I was worried about living life without alcohol.
Yeah.
I really was, because I thought I physically was so addicted to it that the first 2 weeks of detox were horrible. Night sweats, horrible cramping, headaches, nauseous at work, all of that kind of stuff, the creepy crawlers. The poison was literally draining out of my body. And there I was, still hosting my shows on Fox News, and I think I was more worried about what is life going to be like when I'm off the set and I can't go home and have a drink.
Yeah.
What is it going to be like? But you know, a few months after I got sober, people at Fox started noticing something different. They said, you look different. Did you lose weight? Is your hair blonder? As if that were possible, you know, Fox and blondes. And did you have work done? Did you have your eyes done? It was like, no, I'm sober. But it was amazing, the change in me. And then my voice started changing. My voice became resonant again. And I started getting my brain cells back. And I would say that my brain started functioning better. And I became much more of a whole person in about a 6-month period. And then I started feeling great on camera. I mean, that was the best part of it, was that I was going into work a fully present person.
Did Roger know? Did Fox know?
No. I mean, they knew I drank, and they never said don't drink at these parties.
Right. Well, but you were in control. You weren't a sloppy drunk.
I was not a sloppy drunk. I was a fun drunk.
Right.
And so, consequently, they never had any problem with me being at these parties and meeting the president and meeting Dick Cheney and you know, going to dinner parties with Rupert Murdoch. I mean, it was just, you know, I was entertaining.
What was the most embarrassing thing that you look back and you just hang your head in shame?
Meeting the president drunk. That wasn't an awesome moment.
Did you think it was at the time?
Well, at the time, I just of course I had drinks in my hotel room before I met him. I didn't have a choice. Look, I think that just shows you the level of pain that I was in. I couldn't, meeting the President of the United States was not enough to keep this girl sober.
So when you decided to sober up,
yeah,
here in Manhattan, I don't know how you survived in Manhattan, seriously.
Wow, did I get in a lot of trouble there.
Yeah, at the top of your game, with the money, the success, the fame, and everything else, the pressure. I can't imagine, I do know, I was at CNN, and I had an executive come up to me my first week. I'm a guy. I was 20 pounds lighter than I am now. And I was having a salad, and I had blue cheese, and when I'm at the salad bar, and one of the executives comes up, a vice president, and he said, whoa, slow down on the blue cheese. And I looked at him and I said, I don't know, I think I said, I feel sorry for the women who you must have said things to. Don't ever say something like that to me again. And he just looked at me, and he's like, I'm just kidding, I'm kidding. And I thought to myself, no, you're not.
No, you're not.
No, you're not. The women, guys can get away with a lot. Women can't. I can't even imagine with the pressure that
well, let me tell you something. When I was there, the wardrobe, the head wardrobe consultant, I was a size 8, I think, at the time, and she held up a size 4 and said, this is what you need to aspire to. A size 4, and I'm 6 feet tall. And so it was like, okay, this is what's important? Really? Now, what did I do? I lost some weight. So there was a lot of pressure on me.
Do you mind me sharing what you said to me, what your big fear was when we first interviewed?
Sure.
Do you remember?
That I was a recovering alcoholic?
No, you said, television is a brutal business, and I'm not getting any younger. And
yeah, I did say that.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
And you said, tell me about that. And I don't remember what I said to you, but I remember thinking, I can't imagine being in your shoes. I can't imagine being in any woman's shoes in this business. It's ugly. Well, first of all, I would never wear those shoes.
But they're great shoes, and they would look great on you.
I don't understand why women wear shoes and then complain about them the whole time. But
I am not complaining. I love my heels.
Yeah, I'm not talking about literal shoes. I can't imagine being a woman in this business with the bull crap that you put up. If somebody's going to tell me, hey,
yeah, but you're your own boss now.
Yeah, I know.
Nobody gets to tell you anything.
But I wasn't the whole time. And I've been treated differently than women, and guys are treated differently than,
we have to work a lot harder.
Yes, you do.
And someone told me a long time ago, Lori, because you're pretty, you're going to have to work 3 times as hard so that people don't think you're dumb. Okay, so you take that kind of pressure. Some of it I put on myself because I'm a perfectionist, and I want to be great at everything I do. Some of it was external pressure, and it was one of the reasons why I drank the way I did. It was a way to alleviate the pressure. This isn't brain surgery here. The reasons why I drank were very simple. So I could fit in, so I could stand out, so I didn't have to face my problems, so I didn't have to deal with my feelings. God forbid I would actually have feelings. It was so interesting getting sober, and I was dealing with feelings for the first time in my life.
So when we come back, I want to go there. I want to find out, what did you discover? What's truth? And what did you discover in that period of time, and, well, since then to now? Back in a minute. When you sober up, you tend to learn an awful lot of things about yourself. Some of them that you don't like, some of them that you do like, and some of them you're just like, whatever. And then I think you find your life's purpose, and you begin to excel like you never thought you could. So tell me what you found and what drives you.
I found that I was a brave person, a smart person, a woman who had a lot to offer the world. That I was a good person and that I was a sick person who needed to get well, not a bad person who was trying to get good by getting sober. I also moved beyond the wreckage of the past and the fear of the past into creating a new life for myself that I never thought was possible. And that is, I moved beyond the world of TV news. I went through a 5-year dry spell. Anyone who has followed my career, and there have been some really kind people at The Blaze and followers on Twitter who have followed my career, and they said, where'd you go for 5 years after you left Fox News? Where'd you go? We thought you were gone. I was working on myself in those years, and that's something that you and I talked about when I came down here a few months ago when you were trying to figure out whether or not you wanted to bring me on board.
No, that was never a doubt.
Well, I certainly thought, oh, he's trying to figure it out. And I'm so glad I'm here now. And but anyway, it was, I was working on Laurie, which is what a gift. Because I think so many people go through their lives without ever really thinking things through. And, you know, I think
really
it
shallow.
sucks.
Most of us are shallow for most of our life.
I think so. I think I was shallow till I got sober. You know, Socrates said an unexamined life is not worth living. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I had asked myself the tough questions until I got sober.
Yeah.
And so
you have no choice. You have
that's
to.
Right.
You have to.
You have to. You have to strip your life down and find out what's essential and what is it that's going to keep you sober day after day. So after I had been in recovery for 4 years and part of a 12-step program and doing things that fulfilled me, because I became a board member of the Caron Foundation's New York Advisory Board. I'm a board member of the National Youth Recovery Foundation. Young people in addiction, it's a massive problem in this country.
Huge.
Trying to help with that.
There's we have a ranch way out in the middle of nowhere, and we've had to put extra cameras and securities, A, just because of who I am, but B, because we're not there all the time. And out in the middle of nowhere, the drugs are becoming so prevalent that people are finding empty houses and using them as crash houses and meth houses. And it's crazy what's going on in these communities where you think, oh no, everything is fine. These are farmers.
That's where things are not all right.
Right.
Yeah, correct. That's right. And again, I want to point out that people who are drug addicts are not bad people. They are sick people who need help.
I say that all the time.
And
now, at the same time you say that, you are for legalization or normalization of drugs, right?
Well, I mean, look, I think a few things. I think the war on drugs has been a massive failure. I think it's been a $1 trillion boondoggle since President Nixon in 1971 said we're going to launch this war on drugs.
I agree.
I think there's no more wasteful government program than the war on drugs.
I think that's, I don't know if I can agree with you, but I'll give you it's at least in the realm.
It's in the realm.
Yeah.
And we know that the DARE program, which was created 30 years ago, has been on the top 10 list of the biggest government failures.
Yeah.
Okay. The war on drugs has not worked spectacularly. And I am of the opinion that you cannot solve this thing by spending money on Black Hawk helicopters and sending them to the border.
No,
you can't. You got to put people in treatment. And we can't lock people up and throw away the key either. And that's why I was actually very happy with Attorney General Eric Holder announcing that he was going to change some of the guidelines for imprisonment.
I just want to point out, those words have never been spoken on this network.
I understand that.
That's why I'm happy with Eric Holder.
Well, I know that, but I want to tell people what Eric Holder did, and for someone who is advocating the treatment of addicts, not necessarily the incarceration of every single person who's holding a dime bag. I mean, I think we locked up 700,000 people for possession of marijuana last year.
Yeah.
It's too many.
Okay. So hang on. So let's go here for a second.
Okay.
Because I'm perfectly willing to. I'm not willing to exchange one black hole for another black hole. So in other words, I think the war on terror is a nightmare. I think it's a nightmare. This is a newer position for me. I've been going down this road for about 4 years because I'm seeing things completely different than I used to. And I think I'm seeing things much more clearly now. And I'm becoming much more libertarian. War on Terror is doing exactly what we did in the 1930s with Al Capone. And, I mean, we're building these criminal organizations.
But prohibition,
yeah, I know.
It didn't do any good.
I know that. I know that. So, and in fact,
Speaking of the 30s,
it made it worse.
It absolutely made it. Created the mafia, you could argue.
Right. So I'm with you on that. However, where my sticking point is I'm not going to say I'm responsible for your actions in any way, shape, or form. I'm willing for you to have whatever it is, and I'm willing to be there and say, I'm here for you. And there's a shelter here that our church or whatever has put together. But I'm not willing to excuse everybody for their actions. You go kill somebody, you go do something, you kill you're a drunk driver, you're done.
Listen, I am not excusing people's behavior here at all. I'm trying to explain behavior and that addiction is a disease.
Right.
And also just the fact that, I mean, what Eric Holder did with this Smart on Crime plan is basically he's trying to lower the overall prison population. And he is trying basically to lower mandatory sentences for people who are holding dime bags. I mean, it costs $30,000 a year to lock up somebody on average in this country. We could be saving a lot of money by not locking people up for these small crimes.
Yeah, okay.
By the way,
it's not for me. It just doesn't work. So it's not a money thing. It just doesn't work.
But why is it okay? Why is alcohol, which is far more deadly than marijuana, why is it okay to get as drunk as you want, but you can't smoke a joint? People commit far more crimes when they're high on alcohol than when they're high on drugs.
I will tell you that I am at the place to where I'm saying, fine, legalize it, destroy the war on terror, this whole thing, this whole apparatus. You know what we would do to the gangs in this country if we legalized drugs? They would dry up much of their...
So why aren't we doing it?
Correct.
Yeah, I think
because
the president's scared to do it.
Yeah, I think people are afraid.
And I think, yeah.
Okay, back in just a second.
Well, as you can see, they hit a key point here. And my key point here is that once you sober up, you do have that call in life. Mine was to go back to what I was really designed for, which was to help people. That's what I do.
This is where I think
Glenn Beck back again now.
You're preaching...
Glenn Beck with Lori Do.
A very libertarian. And then part of it ropes right back into government.
Yeah.
And I'm not into the government thing. And I think that they'll fail there, they'll fail here, they'll fail everywhere. It's up to all of us as responsible citizens to do the right thing in our own life. Look, you want to kill yourself? You want to kill yourself?
You have the right to kill yourself, but you don't have the right to smoke marijuana legally? I don't understand
you have a right.
that.
You have a right to do that, but I don't have the responsibility to then pick up the pieces of your life. I can choose as an individual to serve and to say, I'm going to help you, and we're going to help you with treatment and everything else.
Yes.
But to have another big bloated government program.
No, and that's not what I'm advocating at all. We need to end
the big government programs.
The big government programs, at least the way they are being conducted right now. Okay? I mean, look, I think that what the government could do is create more treatment programs. And make the focus less about throwing people in jail and more about focusing on treatment in terms of public policy also.
I think anytime the government gets involved, they screw it up. Instead, come out to us. And let us fix this.
You're right. You know what? A lot of people say this, a lot of people in our movement, in the advocacy movement, and I've been giving speeches the last 2.5 years, traveling around the country, trying to educate people about the disease of addiction and what we as a community need to do, which is get it out of the closet and out of the shadows the way they did with HIV and breast cancer and some of these other diseases, and put it on the table, because too many Americans are dying every year of this disease.
Well, too many Americans are dying.
Twice as many people die from alcoholism as breast cancer every year.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Too many people do it because they think, A, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show with you. I'm not an alcoholic because that's not what an alcoholic looks like. Yep, nope, that's what an alcoholic looks like right there. This is what an alcoholic looks like. They are not what you think. And if you are struggling and looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I got to stop, or if you know somebody who is in this situation, you're not going to be able to do anything to save their life.
They have to do it themselves. And you're right. The government cannot tell you, nor should the government tell you you've got to quit. But yes.
They can't. They can't. Nobody can save.
Nobody
could have saved Anna Nicole Smith. That was her choice.
She was going to die.
So
nobody could have saved Amy Winehouse.
Right.
The fact that Lindsay Lohan is still alive and Charlie Sheen is still alive
is amazing.
It boggles the mind.
And you know what? And anybody in the family that feels like, oh, this is my fault, or I should have done more, or I could have done. No, you can't.
You didn't create it. You didn't cause it. You can't cure it.
Yeah, you can enable it, which will elongate, but it's up to them on what they do.
If you want to get sober, and for people who are watching today who think, oh my gosh, she's telling my story. Yeah. Because this disease really affects women. Women are much more afraid to put up their hand and say, I need help.
And stop.
For people who are watching this show, I want to say, you can do it. You're not alone. Yeah. You shouldn't be fighting this alone.
Get to an AA program because it really works. I'm glad you're here. We're out of time already. But thank you. And she will be back tomorrow with the beginnings of news on the Blaze.
Okay, so that was Glenn Beck, and let me tell you, the reason I wanted to make sure that you folks heard this on the Take Your Life Back Today show was because it is so true of what those two folks were talking about. It is people like you, people like me, that are the alcoholics. Here's an interesting thought. A high percentage of people out there have a problem with alcohol, and they don't even want to admit it. They're all at different stages. Some would never suspect a teacher, a fireman, could be a policeman, it could be the grocery clerk, it could be people just around you, all walks of life, and even myself, because I am an alcoholic. Glenn Beck is an alcoholic. Lori is an alcoholic. They all claim to be in control. They say it's just a social thing. Folks, as sure as I'm sitting here doing my show today, I am telling you it is not a social thing. And so I continue doing it myself, thinking in those same premises. But until you stop for a long while, and only then will you find out that you don't feel normal totally of it. In other words, once you don't do it for a while, you will never ever miss it again. When I was drinking, I was driven with a buzz. I was fine, barely enough to convict, and not a hazard on the road, but driving totally sober for 5 days. And this is what Glenn Beck said. So here's my point. Why do most of us automatically look at recovered alcoholics as totally screwed up people when we're not? What we are human beings, good humans. We're not good looking to get better. We are sick looking to get better with a disease. They think, oh, there's someone who's totally out of control who had to quit because of maybe possibly hurting other people. No, we had to quit because we had to save ourselves from this disease. The rest of us are okay because we can keep our drinking under control, is what you're going to say. No drinking is under control. If you're an excessive drinker, if you abuse alcohol, even if you abuse drugs, you're not in control. What they're doing is, or what you might be doing, is damaging yourself. When and only when they have admitted that they have problems in their own lives, then will they also see what Glenn Beck, myself, and millions of other people see throughout the world, that alcoholism is a disease worthy of talking about. Now, you got to remember, why did Glenn Beck even do this show? Because he had to bring the person that he was interviewing out, because what she said during the interview, when he says, and what is your name? And she says, my name is Lori, and I'm an alcoholic. Folks, how many people do you know that would, during an interview, admit that they're an alcoholic? And that's why Glenn Beck, and I agree with him, says alcoholics will save this world one day. And what he meant by that is because of the openness of someone that's going through recovery, how they come out and they just spill their beans and they say how it is. That's what he meant. Honestly, now they are the ones, we are the ones in control of our own lives. It is the folks that are not admitting that they are alcoholics or drug abusers. Those are the ones that are going to ruin the world. I would hire, without a doubt, any recovered alcoholic as one of my staff members on my show if they came and told me that right up front. Why shouldn't Glenn Beck do that? Folks, I need to hear from you at 631-599-0218. Let me know what you think about that. I think it's a great idea. I think kudos to him. I think he did a very good move there. You can call me at 844-405-HELP. Please come and visit me at Take Your Life Back Today's show, and I will help take your life back. May God bless you, and have a sober day.